Summer 1943, Camp Crossville, Tennessee. The German soldier stared at the bottle in his hand, watching the dark, bubbling drink rise to the top. He had never seen anything like it. After 2 years fighting in North Africa, living on hard biscuits and weak ersatz coffee, this sugary, fizzy drink called Coca-Cola felt almost unreal. It cost only 5 cents at the camp canteen, the same amount, the guard said, that American children spent from their pocket money. Across the United States that summer, 371,683 German POWs came face to face with a world completely different from what Nazi propaganda had told them. They suddenly found themselves in a country where ice cream was a normal dessert, soft drinks were everyday treats, and candy bars were so common that guards sometimes handed them out for free. To many of these men, such snacks, things most German kids had never even tasted, shook their beliefs more effectively than any Allied leaflet ever could. The simple abundance of sugar, chocolate, and ice cream revealed an industrial power that made Germany's wartime shortages look less like heroic sacrifice and more like needless suffering. What started as surprise over American sweets soon grew into a deep psychological shift. The collapse of the Afrika Korps in Tunisia in May 1943 brought about 250,000 German and Italian troops into Allied hands. These seasoned desert veterans, who had once pushed the British back to Egypt under Rommel, expected harsh punishment. Nazi messages had warned them that Americans would starve and beat them. Instead, just hours after surrendering, they were handed American K-rations. These field meals, often criticized by U.S. soldiers, felt like luxury packages to the Germans. They contained crackers, processed cheese, candy, fruit bars, instant coffee, sugar tablets, and cigarettes. Men who had lived for months on tiny portions treated these emergency rations like a banquet. Army records show that at the first processing camps in North Africa, Americans even served pancakes with syrup, fresh eggs, and milk, foods long gone from German rations. The feeding of prisoners with better food than their own army gave them began immediately, though the psychological effects became clear only later. A German officer later told the International Red Cross, "We thought we would be starved. Instead, the Americans fed us better than our own side." That was when we realized something was very different. When Liberty ships carried POWs across the Atlantic in summer 1943, the lesson continued. These cargo ships, built at astonishing speed, one every 42 hours of peak production, moved up to 30,000 prisoners a month. To the U.S. naval records show that POWs received the same or better food than the crew, roughly 3,500 calories a day, with fresh bread, meat, vegetables, and coffee with milk and sugar. The ship's refrigeration equipment kept food fresh for the whole journey. Even more unbelievable, logs confirm that ice cream was served on several voyages. The USS General M.B. Stewart recorded giving prisoners ice cream on July 4th, using an onboard machine that made 10 gallons per batch. For men who hadn't tasted ice cream since before the war, eating it in the middle of the ocean felt impossible. When prisoners arrived at ports like Norfolk and Newport News, they stepped into an America that Nazi propaganda had described as weak and collapsing. Norfolk Naval Base alone, covering 4,300 acres, moved more cargo in a single day than major German ports handled in a week. At the port stores, meant for dock workers, German POWs saw shelves full of candy bars from Hershey, Mars, and Nestle. Military supply records from 1943 show dozens of candy types sold for 5 cents each, the same price everywhere in America. Their train ride inland taught them even more. Instead of cramped cattle cars, they rode in passenger coaches. Dining cars served full meals. Menus from July 1943 list fried chicken, vegetables, pie, and coffee. The POWs soon realized this wasn't special treatment. It was normal American rail service. The POW camps built across the U.S. followed conditions far better than what the Geneva Convention required. Camp Crossville, like many large camps, had electricity, hot water, flush toilets, and heated buildings. But it was the camp stores, the PX, that shocked the prisoners the most. Quartermaster records show that PX stores carried several brands of soft drinks, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, plenty of candy, ice cream when possible, cigarettes, fruit, snacks, and even low-alcohol beer. Prisoners earned 80 cents a day, later raised to $1. Since candy bars and Coke cost only 5 cents, a single day's wage could buy 16 items, an amount unimaginable in wartime Germany, where such treats required special connections, if they existed at all. Coca-Cola quickly became the symbol of American abundance. Company data shows 5 billion bottles were produced in 1943 alone. The military guaranteed that American troops worldwide could buy a bottle for 5 cents, a policy requiring enormous logistics. German POWs soon realized the drink was everywhere. Every camp received regular shipments. Work crews saw Coke machines in factories, gas stations, and schools. Americans of all ages drank it casually, sometimes throwing away bottles still half full. The consistency amazed technically trained prisoners. Coca-Cola tasted exactly the same in every state, an example of industrial coordination far beyond anything Germany achieved. Company archives show that many camps received 200 to 300 cases a week. One Texas camp, Camp Hearn, consumed around 7,000 bottles a week in summer 1943. Ice cream in the prison camps was another shock. Most Germans hadn't had it since before the war. Yet Army files confirm that camps with good refrigeration served ice cream regularly in the summer. The U.S. military believed ice cream was crucial for morale, so much so that they even built ships dedicated to making it for the Pacific Fleet. At Camp Shelby, Mississippi, the July 4th celebration in 1943 featured homemade ice cream. POWs watched as large hand-crank machines produced gallons of it using ice, salt, cream, sugar, and flavorings. The casual use of ice in the heat of summer, plus scarce ingredients like cream and sugar, show them priorities they could hardly understand. By 1944, many camps even had electric ice cream machines. The flavors available, chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, butter pecan, were more than what most German ice cream shops offered even before the war. Prisoners could buy ice cream bars for 10 cents, ice cream sandwiches for the same price, or small cups in different flavors. Army purchasing documents show that bigger camps ordered between 50 and 100 gallons of ice cream each week during the summer. The amount depended on the camp and the season, but prisoners regularly enjoyed this frozen treat that had completely disappeared from daily life in Germany. Sugar in American POW camps created an especially strong impression. In Germany, sugar was tightly controlled, and families only received around 280 grams a month, when it was available at all. In American camps, big bowls of sugar sat openly on the mess hall tables for anyone to use as they liked. Quartermaster reports from 1943 to 1945 show camps receiving 100-pound sacks of refined sugar every week. Camp bakeries used it freely. Cakes, cookies, and pies appeared on menus all the time. Mess halls sweetened coffee, tea, cereal, and desserts without any limits. One story from Camp Aliceville, Alabama, shows the stark contrast. In August 1943, the humid weather caused several hundred pounds of sugar to harden into big lumps. Instead of trying to steam it and save it, as Germans would have done, the American kitchen staff simply threw it out and ordered more. German prisoners working in the kitchen were shocked at the waste. American chocolate habits also demonstrated how widespread consumer goods were. Companies like Hershey, Mars, and Nestle continued producing millions of chocolate bars each month, even with wartime restrictions. The U.S. military alone bought 380 million pounds of chocolate during the war. Camp stores offered many types of chocolate treats: the regular Hershey bar, ration-style bars, emergency chocolate, and all kinds of candy bars containing chocolate, usually priced between 5 and 10 cents. Prisoners noticed that Americans even had personal preferences. Some liked one brand over another and bought accordingly. Monthly Red Cross parcels given to prisoners also included chocolate. American Red Cross documents show the standard package included chocolate or candy bars, instant coffee, processed cheese, crackers, canned meat, cigarettes, and soap. These packages came on top of regular meals, giving prisoners foods German civilians could only dream of during the war. Thanksgiving 1943 gave German prisoners their first experience of a major American holiday. The huge nationwide effort showed a level of organization Germany couldn't match. Military records confirm that every POW camp served a full Thanksgiving meal: roast turkey with stuffing, mashed potatoes with gravy, sweet potatoes, cranberry sauce, vegetables, pumpkin pie, coffee, and milk. Providing turkey dinners for roughly 425,000 prisoners and millions of American troops at the same time showed immense logistical power. The fact that prisoners received the same meal as American soldiers directly contradicted the Nazi claims about racial hierarchy. Christmas 1943 brought more surprises. Ordinary American civilians sent gifts to German POWs. Church groups, volunteer organizations, and families mailed packages to the camps. The American Friends Service Committee alone delivered 50,000 Christmas parcels to German prisoners. These usually contained homemade cookies, candy, toiletries, small games or books, cigarettes, and writing supplies. Local communities near camps often gave additional support. In Tonkawa, Oklahoma, townspeople brought homemade treats to the prisoners. In Hearne, Texas, church groups delivered Christmas cookies and candy. This kindness toward the enemy challenged core Nazi beliefs. Even while their own relatives were fighting overseas, Americans still showed mercy and generosity. Because of severe labor shortages, German POWs increasingly worked outside the camps. By 1944, around 100,000 prisoners worked in farms and food processing plants, giving them a close look at America's food supply. In Michigan's orchards, prisoners picked cherries used to make maraschino cherries, the bright red toppings for ice cream sundaes. The volume amazed them. A single orchard could produce tons of fruit just for decoration. At canning plants, they saw strict quality checks where perfectly edible fruit was rejected for minor flaws. Del Monte's 1944 records show that about 15% of fruit was rejected for small imperfections and sent to animal feed instead. German prisoners working in U.S. beet processing areas saw farming machinery far ahead of anything in Germany. One American farm could produce more sugar beets than entire German regions. They learned that the U.S. produced around 7 million tons of sugar a year from both cane and beets, explaining why sugar was everywhere. Prisoners assigned near schools witnessed early forms of organized school lunch programs. Children received hot meals with milk, vegetables, and protein. Though the official National School Lunch Act came later in 1946, these wartime programs already ran in many places. The milk program impressed German observers the most. Many schools served fresh milk every day. Delivering milk daily to so many schools showed a level of organization Germany couldn't match even for its army. Some schools even sold ice cream. The idea that American kids could buy frozen treats at school while German children faced shortages left a deep mark on the POWs. When low-risk prisoners ate in American diners under guard, they witnessed everyday abundance firsthand. Small diners served menus that, in Germany, would have been found only in upscale restaurants. But here, anyone could order them. Menu prices from 1944 show hamburgers for 25 cents, Coca-Cola for 5 cents, pie for 15 cents, ice cream sundaes for 25 cents, and full dinner specials for 65 to 75 cents. Everyone, factory workers and bank managers alike, ate the same meals, at the same counters, served by the same waitress for the same price. This equality in daily life contradicted Germany's class-based system. As prisoners gained access to American newspapers and magazines, they discovered production numbers that overwhelmed German standards. In 1944 alone, the U.S. produced about 7 million tons of sugar, 380 million pounds of chocolate products, military only, 5 billion bottles of Coca-Cola in 1943, over 500 million gallons of ice cream, 119 billion pounds of milk. Germany's wartime production during the same period was a fraction of this. Sugar was strictly rationed. Chocolate was limited mostly to the military. Soft drinks were scarce. Ice cream was nearly non-existent. Milk was heavily restricted. These figures, published openly, show that U.S. wartime output exceeded Germany's best peacetime levels. By late 1944, POWs in America were no longer receiving food parcels, they were sending them. Using their camp wages, prisoners bought American goods like chocolate bars, instant coffee, and canned foods and mailed them home. International Red Cross records confirm that German POWs in the U.S. sent roughly 11 million packages to Germany during the war, most containing food. Families in Germany, starving under rationing, received American goods from relatives held captive overseas. This reality struck at the heart of Nazi propaganda. American rationing during the war also highlighted the difference between the two societies. Americans complained about their sugar allowance of 2 pounds a month, more than 3 times what Germans received when supplies existed. American meat rations were 28 ounces per week per person, more than Germans got in an entire month. Even under rationing, American food supplies remained far above anything Germans experienced. For German prisoners, the level of luxury they encountered in America seemed impossible. Records from the Office of Price Administration show that, even with rationing, Americans consumed 74 pounds of sugar per person in 1944, about 10 times what Germans managed. Beyond Coca-Cola, prisoners were introduced to a booming soft drink industry. Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, Orange Crush, and numerous local brands competed across the country. The sheer variety and the fact that multiple companies made similar products revealed a kind of abundance that Germany's controlled economy could never allow. Bottling plants operated in almost every major city, with highly efficient, standardized processes for carbonation, bottling, capping, and labeling. Single factories produced millions of bottles a year, and distribution networks reached even small towns, gas stations, and grocery stores. By the end of the war, Americans consumed billions of bottles annually, many per citizen, an output that surpassed entire sectors of German consumer production. Spring 1945 delivered the final ideological shock. As U.S. forces pushed through Germany, POWs in America watched newsreels of soldiers giving chocolate and gum to German children. The contrast was staggering. American soldiers could hand out treats freely, while the German government, promising victory, delivered hunger. Footage of concentration camp liberation showed troops sharing rations with starving survivors, demonstrating humanity toward victims of the very regime the prisoners had served. Between 1945 and 1946, German POWs returned home to a devastated country. Many had gained weight and were healthier than when captured, while their families had suffered malnutrition. They brought back first-hand knowledge of abundance. Medical records confirmed that returning prisoners were generally healthier than before their capture. Many carried Red Cross packages filled with chocolate, coffee, and canned goods, which became prized family treasures. Children who had never tasted chocolate received it from fathers who had eaten ice cream and candy regularly in camp. These experiences shaped their thinking. Former POWs became some of the earliest supporters of the Marshall Plan. They had seen a nation so productive that it could rebuild and even provide for former enemies. They understood that American strength came from creating wealth, not taking it. Witnessing a society capable of wasting food while fighting a world war left a lasting impression. This mindset influenced West Germany's post-war recovery. The German economic miracle of the 1950s drew, in part, on lessons learned in American POW camps. Veterans applied ideas about mass production, distribution, and consumer abundance. They saw how standardization could increase efficiency and quality, and how widespread access to goods could stabilize society. Military records, Red Cross reports, corporate archives, especially Coca-Cola, censored prisoner letters, post-war interviews, memoirs, and academic studies, particularly the work of historian Arnold Kramer, confirmed that food abundance was central to this transformation. Kramer concluded that casual exposure to American plenty achieved what formal re-education programs could not. It dismantled myths of Nazi superiority. Statistics tell the story clearly. POWs in the U.S. from 1943 to 1946 had 3,300 to 3,600 daily calories, 4 pounds of sugar available monthly, 32 ounces of meat weekly, 1 quart of milk daily, regular summer ice cream, unlimited soft drinks for 5 cents. In contrast, German civilians received 1,200 to 1,500 calories daily, 280 grams of sugar monthly when available, 10.5 ounces of meat weekly, often unavailable, milk heavily rationed, no ice cream or soft drinks. These differences were real, not propaganda. Prisoners ate better than most German civilians, proving the reach of American abundance. The exposure to American food culture had long-lasting effects. Coca-Cola returned to West Germany in 1949, symbolizing American friendship. Ice cream parlors modeled on American soda fountains opened in cities. Candy bars and chewing gum became icons of recovery. Former POWs often became importers of these goods, knowing from personal experience the appeal of abundance, democracy, and modernity. Supermarkets in Germany during the 1950s were often promoted by ex-prisoners who had observed American grocery stores and distribution systems firsthand. Post-war interviews and memoirs repeatedly highlight how transformative these experiences were. One former Africa Corps officer recalled in 1975, "We expected to beat a weak America. Instead, we saw a nation that could give ice cream to its enemies. That's when we realized we had lost more than a war. We had lost our worldview." Another veteran told a 1985 documentary, "My first Coca-Cola was like drinking the future. Sweet, fizzy, unnecessary, and available to anyone for a nickel. It was everything Nazi Germany wasn't: abundant, democratic, joyful. These accounts confirm that American food abundance achieved what military defeat alone could not: total ideological transformation. Men who arrived as Nazi soldiers left as witnesses to democratic prosperity. Historians agree that the POW experience in the U.S. functioned as re-education through observation, not instruction. Prisoners saw a highly productive society, treating them with dignity. Food was the universal medium of this lesson. Hunger and satisfaction are understood by everyone. Every meal, every Coca-Cola, every ice cream sundae served as a lesson in American industrial capacity and democratic access. The children of POWs grew up hearing stories of impossible abundance, and later verified them as West Germany recovered. American food culture became both legend and reality. It shaped personal memories, family traditions, business culture, and political thought. Former POWs children studied and worked in the U.S., seeing firsthand the systems their fathers had described. Supermarkets, soda fountains, candy aisles, all confirmed the tales. The impact extended beyond individuals. West German industry and commerce absorbed lessons in mass production, quality control, and distribution. The POW experience left a multi-generational imprint, embedding the idea that consumer abundance, combined with democratic access, could sustain both prosperity and stability. The post-war economic miracle in Germany wasn't only about producing more goods, it was about making abundance available to ordinary people. Today, McDonald's runs over 1,400 restaurants across Germany. Coca-Cola is everywhere, and ice cream is an everyday treat. What began in the American prison camps as small acts of abundance had come full circle. The historical lesson is clear: transformation through plenty, not deprivation, through generosity, not cruelty, through demonstration, not propaganda. The German prisoners who could hardly believe they were being offered ice cream and Coca-Cola in American camps saw firsthand what democracy could achieve. They witnessed a society capable of producing so much that it could casually share luxuries with its enemies. The story of these prisoners and American food abundance is one of history's most unusual victories: a war influenced by generosity, ideology undermined by dessert, a worldview overturned by soft drinks. These men changed not through punishment, but through plenty. They entered captivity believing in German superiority and American weakness. They left knowing that real strength came from the ability to produce wealth so vast it could be given away freely. The society that could sell a bottle of Coca-Cola to prisoners for a nickel possessed a power that went beyond military force. The ice cream sundae, piled high with layers of ice cream, syrup, whipped cream, nuts, and a cherry on top, became a symbol of American abundance. Each ingredient alone surpassed what most German children could dream of. Together, they created a luxury that seemed impossible, made ordinary. That prisoners could ask for seconds while German children faced hunger exposed the full scale of Nazi failure. Former prisoners often remembered specific moments that transformed their perspective: the first fizz of a Coca-Cola, the first spoonful of ice cream, the first bite of a Hershey bar. These experiences, simple as they were, carried more weight than any lecture or propaganda. They had tasted democracy, and it was sweet. The transformation was complete and permanent. Men who had marched for the Third Reich returned home as ambassadors of abundance, spreading the revolutionary lesson that prosperity comes from freedom, not conquest. They understood that America's true power wasn't in its armies, but in its capacity to share, to give, to demonstrate generosity even to those who had been its enemy. In the end, bottles of Coca-Cola and bowls of ice cream accomplished what armies could not. They reshaped minds and hearts. The German prisoners, who could hardly believe such plenty existed, became its most compelling witnesses. They carried home the message that democracy tasted like chocolate and fizzed like carbonation. Their story reminds us that some of the greatest victories are achieved not through destruction, but through showing what abundance looks like, not through taking, but through giving, not through hate, but through simple acts of generosity, like serving ice cream on a hot summer day. The men who experienced American abundance as prisoners became unexpected ambassadors of freedom, forever transformed by the reality of Coca-Cola and ice cream in American prison camps.